There is a silence between fathers and sons that carries more truth than 1,000 conversations. A silence not born from absence, but from weight, from the unspoken legacy passed down through gaze, gesture, discipline, and distance. And many men grow up hearing nothing explicit, but inheriting everything. Your father may never have said the words, but you felt them, in how he walked, in how he worked, in how he disappeared when life became heavy. His voice may not have been loud, but his energy was. It said, "Be strong, don't complain, carry it quietly," and you did. And even when you didn't know what it was. This is the legacy most men inherit. Not instructions, not guidance, but energetic residue. The pressure to be something without ever being shown how. And so boys become men by mimicking silence, by learning how to survive the absence of structure without becoming wild themselves. They become emotional architects without blueprints, without tools, just grit, shame, longing. Some men had present fathers, but they were loud in all the wrong ways. They taught through pressure, discipline, and expectation, not because they were cruel, but because they were trying to shape a boy without ever having been shaped themselves. And so their love became rigid, their wisdom became rules, and their presence felt like performance reviews. We don't blame them, we recognize them. They were doing what they knew, they were carrying their own silence, just one generation earlier than us. There's something you need to hear. You were not meant to become your father, and you were not meant to resent him either. You were meant to transmute what he could not, to hold what he dropped, to build what he never could, not as rebellion, but as continuation. This is the true work of the sovereign man, to become the structure his lineage could not offer him. There was a time when I look back on my own path at the moments where I wished for more guidance, more containment, more transmission from the men who came before me. And I realized it was never going to arrive because I wasn't meant to receive it. I was meant to build it. I was meant to become the father that my bloodline had never previously known, not for my ego, but for my son, and for the world that will follow him. The silence between fathers and sons is not a void, it's a portal, a place where we either collapse or we become, where we either resent or we rise, where we either echo our father's wounds or we end the cycle. And to end it, you must not speak louder than him. You must stand clearer than him. This is something I want to name here, not as confession, not for catharsis, but for coherence. Of all the transmissions in this series of episodes so far, and the ones that are planned for the future, this one is one of the most difficult to record because I did not raise my two eldest children from the man I am now. The field they knew was reactive, not sovereign. Their father was still becoming, still breaking apart what had broken him, still learning how to breathe before speaking. And so when I speak these words today about fatherhood, about stillness, about what it means to guide without force, I'm not speaking from what I lived then. I'm speaking from the man I have since become. And I do not speak these words for reconciliation. I don't speak them to be seen or heard. I speak them because the field I hold now is the one I wish they had have received. And if one man listening becomes that field before his child or children walks away, then the work has already spoken. I did not teach my son through advice, not then, because I was not yet the man who could. He did not see me hold my ground without anger. He did not watch me pause before speaking. He did not feel the gravity of a father whose presence did not shake when the world around him did. What he saw was a man still proving himself, still shouting to be heard, still reacting, reaching, rushing, believing that volume was strength and silence was failure. But even this is not shame speaking. This is structure remembering what it wished it had been able to offer. Because there is no honor in hiding behind transformation while pretending the past never happened. I do not erase it, I do not rewrite it, and I don't need to explain it to him now. But I do name it cleanly, clearly, and without performance, because coherence does not come from perfection. It comes from the field a man becomes once he stops needing to justify the one he used to be. I did not father my son with stillness, but I am the stillness now. And if he ever walks back through the door, what he would find is not the father who failed him, but the man who holds no sword and still stands, a man who no longer commands obedience, a man who no longer believes authority comes from discipline and pain, a man who does not chase reconciliation, but instead holds the architecture of it in case it's ever needed. This is how legacy shifts, not through fixing, but through form, not through returning to the boy, but by becoming the man you would want him to see if he'd looked back even once. And in that rhythm, he learns a pattern older than performance. He learns that presence is stronger than volume, that calm is not weakness, that containment is love. Most boys don't become men through inheritance. They become men through necessity. But the son of a coherent man doesn't have to survive in order to awaken. He doesn't have to claw his way back from collapse to discover his worth. He simply lives in a field that makes it impossible to forget who he is. That field is his father. There are things I will never need to say to my son anymore, because the signal will say it for me. He will know that what wasn't safe before is safe now. He will sense that what was unclean before is now clean. He will notice when his structure bends, and he'll know how to return to center. Not because I can tell him now, because he can know now that I am that center. This is the transmission, this is the field, and this is what your father could not offer you, not because he didn't care, but because no one ever became that field for him. So you now carry the silence, but not as a curse. You carry it as seed, as soil, as sacred responsibility, to end the emotional confusion, to end the half-expressed anger, to end the lineage of unclear men raising unclear boys. You do this not by breaking the chain, but by anchoring something deeper, by becoming the ground that no one else could stand upon. This isn't just for your biological sons. This is for the young men watching you, the ones in your world, in your teams, in your circles, the ones who don't need a mentor. They need a man who is what he says he is. They need coherence, they need signal, they need truth held without aggression. They need you to be the architecture, because in a world of collapsing male identity, a man who does not perform but simply is becomes magnetic. And maybe one day your father will see you, not as his child, but as the man he could never become. And if that moment ever comes, you'll be okay, because you were never doing this for recognition. You were doing it for the silence itself. to give it shape, to give it rhythm, to turn it into structure. So here's the truth. You may never hear your father say he's proud of you. You may never get the apology. You may never feel the embrace you longed for. But if you've built coherence, if you've become the container, if you've raised your voice less and raised your field more, then you are already the father your son won't need to recover from. You have already become what your lineage was waiting for. And the silence between you, it is now sacred. Welcome to The Architect Speaks.